Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited for this deep dive. We're tackling something I know you're all passionate about, corporate learning and development. More specifically, we'll be cracking open Chapter 6 of David Vance's book, The Business of Learning. We'll be looking at how to build a business plan around L&D. And I want to be clear, we're not talking about just ticking those compliance training boxes. We're talking about creating a strategic powerhouse for learning and development
Right.
in your organization.
Yeah, that's such an important distinction to make. Moving beyond training is something that's just like nice to have. And instead, we're talking about really positioning learning as a driver of real, actual business results.
Absolutely. I think Vance really drives that point home. A solid business plan is really the key. One thing I've always struggled with, though, is getting buy-in from leadership for L&D initiatives. It always feels like they just see it as a cost center, not an investment.
Oh, I hear you. It's a hurdle that so many people come up against. But a really well-structured business plan, that can really be your secret weapon. Think of it like you're pitching a new product line. You wouldn't launch a product without demonstrating the ROI, right?
Oh, that's a fantastic analogy. So it's about really showing how L&D initiatives actually contribute to those larger organizational goals, the things that, the C-suite really cares about.
Exactly. The plan helps you articulate that. How L&D initiatives directly support those big objectives, whether it's about boosting productivity or driving innovation, or maybe even navigating like a major industry shift.
Okay. I'm starting to see the light here. So we're using a business plan to really reframe learning as this strategic asset, not just a cost. And Vance actually breaks down, the essential components of this plan. And he starts with what he calls the learning strategy, which sounds pretty high level.
Yeah, it is. It is. Think of it as like your North Star. It's all about connecting those dots between what your organization wants to achieve and the skills and knowledge that your people need to actually get there. And it's not just about today's needs either. A good learning strategy future-proofs your workforce too.
Okay, so let's say, for example, my company's aiming to become a leader in AI-powered solutions, let's say. Would the learning strategy then outline how we equip our employees with those necessary skills to make that happen?
Exactly. That might involve things like technical training on AI applications, data analysis skills for leveraging those AI insights, even ethical considerations.
Yeah.
For responsible AI development.
That's a really great point. So the strategy sets the big picture vision, and then we get into the specifics with what Vance calls the learning objectives.
Yeah, you got it. But we're not just listing vague aspirations here. Vance emphasizes using what he calls SMART objectives. So that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So, for example, instead of just saying improve communication skills, a SMART objective might be something like reduce project delays by 10% within 6 months through targeted communication training for project managers.
Okay, I see that. So it ties directly back to a measurable business outcome, fewer project delays, which makes it so much easier to actually track the impact of the training.
Exactly. That's how you really demonstrate the ROI of learning. And before you even start designing these, amazing programs, you got to know who you're teaching. Vance calls this identifying your target audience.
Right, because, we all know a one-size-fits-all approach rarely works in L&D. Different groups have different needs, different levels of existing knowledge, different learning styles even.
Exactly. So are you targeting senior leaders,
Yeah.
new hires, specific departments, or maybe individuals with, specific skill gaps? Understanding your audience is so critical for really tailoring that learning experience, and having maximum impact.
So, okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. We define our strategy, we set SMART objectives, we identify our target audience. Then what? Do we just start brainstorming all the amazing training programs you can dream up?
Almost. Vance next talks about learning programs and initiatives, but it's more than just a list of courses. It's about selecting the right types of programs to achieve those objectives that we've set. For example, you focused on leadership development, technical upskilling, onboarding, or maybe compliance training.
And I imagine those choices would really depend heavily on the company's overall goals and the specific skills and knowledge gaps that we're trying to address. I'm imagining a whole matrix of possibilities here. Oh, that's a great way to visualize it. And once you've chosen your programs, then you got to think about how you'll deliver them. And this is where we get into, the exciting world of delivery methods.
Right. And we're no longer limited to just those stuffy old classrooms.
Right.
We've got online learning platforms, virtual instructor-led training, blended approaches, even simulations, and gamified learning experiences.
That's such a diverse landscape. Choosing the right method depends on your content, your audience, and of course your budget. Vance doesn't shy away from that less glamorous but very essential aspect, resources and budget.
Right, right,
Yeah.
yeah. It's where we have to get real. But the costs involved and,
Yeah.
developing high-quality learning experiences requires an investment. We need instructional designers, facilitators, technology platforms, potentially even travel expenses for in-person events. You're hitting all the key points. And remember, this is where your business plan that we talked about becomes your justification tool. You're not just asking for money, you're showcasing the potential return on investment by tying those costs back to the business outcomes that you are aiming to achieve.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this plan really helps build the case, that all-important business case for L&D. We're actually demonstrating how investing in our people ultimately drives results for the entire organization.
Exactly. Shifting the conversation from, like, how much will this training cost to how much value will this learning initiative create?
Okay, so we've got our strategy, objectives, target audience, programs, delivery methods, and even our budget in place. Now what? Do we just cross our fingers and hope everything goes smoothly?
Not quite. That brings us to a crucial aspect that Vance calls governance and accountability. It's about establishing, like, a clear structure for how learning is managed within the organization.
I have a feeling this is where things can get a little messy if it's not well defined.
Yeah, you're right. Think of it as like the operating system for your learning ecosystem.
Right.
Who approves new programs? Who's tracking progress and reporting those results? How are decisions made about resource allocation?
So it's about establishing those clear roles and responsibilities so everyone knows who's in charge of what, right, and how decisions are made.
Precisely. A strong governance structure keeps things running smoothly, minimizes confusion, and it really sets the stage for accountability, which leads us to the final component that Vance highlights, metrics and measurement.
The data. This is where we actually get to prove that all of our hard work is actually making a difference.
Exactly. We need to go beyond just tracking completion rates and really delve into the metrics that actually demonstrate the impact of learning on those business outcomes.
So we're talking about, are we seeing improvements in performance, productivity, customer satisfaction, those key metrics that we aligned with our learning objectives earlier?
That's the sweet spot. We really need to show that the learning programs are driving tangible results for the organization, not just checking boxes.
It's so great how this business plan really brings it all together. It's not just a document, it's a framework for thinking strategically about how learning can truly transform an organization.
And that's just the beginning. We've laid the groundwork, but there's so much more to explore. In the next segment, we'll delve into Vance's 7-step process for actually creating this plan. And I'll share some insights from my own experience working with companies to develop and implement successful learning strategies.
Oh, I can't wait. We'll be back after a quick...
Hold on. We don't do breaks here. We're going to keep this momentum going.
Right, you are. We're diving straight into part 2. Where we'll get tactical with Vance's 7-step process for crafting your own powerful business plan for learning. Don't go anywhere.
Okay, so we've explored the why behind this whole business plan for learning thing, but now let's get our hands dirty and get into the how. You mentioned that Vance outlines a 7-step process for this. Where do we even begin?
Well, Vance starts at the highest level. With understanding your organization's goals, we really need to be totally in lockstep with those big picture aspirations.
So I'm hearing you say we need to really dig into those strategic plans, sit down with leadership, really understand what they're trying to achieve. It sounds like this goes way beyond just asking what training courses they want.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's about connecting those learning initiatives to the core drivers. The core drivers of the business. Are they focused on growth, innovation, efficiency? Or maybe they're trying to enter a whole new market. Okay, this makes me think about a company I worked with a while back. They were really struggling to adapt to remote work, and their leadership was super focused on maintaining productivity and collaboration, in this new environment.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
In that scenario, you'd explore how L&D could really support those goals, maybe by providing training on, remote team management or virtual communication tools, or even, strategies for maintaining well-being in a remote setting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let's say we've got a handle on those big picture organizational goals. What's next on Vance's list?
Step 2 is all about assessing learning needs. Now that we know where the organization is headed, You got to figure out what skills and knowledge gaps might be holding them back, right?
I imagine this involves a bit more than just sending out a company-wide survey. We got to get a bit more targeted.
Yeah, for sure. Surveys can definitely be a part of it, but you want to gather data from multiple sources. Think about conducting interviews with key stakeholders, observing work processes, really getting in there, analyzing performance data, maybe even looking at industry trends to try and anticipate future skills needs.
Wow, that's a really thorough approach. But, okay, let's say we uncover a pattern of miscommunication between different departments, and it's leading to, like, project delays and frustration.
That's a valuable insight. That would suggest a need for training, maybe focus on cross-functional collaboration or communication skills, or even, project management methodologies that promote that clarity and alignment.
It's like connecting the dots between those organizational goals and the specific learning interventions that can help achieve those goals. This feels so much more strategic than just throwing random training courses at the problem.
Exactly. And that strategic thinking is really what fuels step 3, defining your learning strategy.
Ah, yes. The North Star we were talking about earlier. So this is where we articulate, how learning will bridge those skills gaps and propel the organization towards its goals.
That's it. Your learning strategy outlines your approach, your priorities, and your guiding principles for L&D. It's like a roadmap. Make sure all your efforts are aligned and purposeful.
It's really starting to feel like we're building a solid foundation here. I'm guessing that having a strong strategy should make those tough decisions, about resource allocation a bit easier, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right. And that actually brings us to step 4, identifying programs and resources. And this is where we really get into the specifics. What will we actually be teaching? How will we deliver it? What resources are we going to need?
So are we talking about choosing between things like online courses, in-person workshops, mentoring programs, or maybe even a blend of different approaches?
Exactly. And it's not just about the content and those delivery methods. We also need to think about the technology platforms, the instructional designers who are going to create those engaging learning experiences, and the facilitators who will guide that learning process.
Sounds like we're assembling a whole team of learning superheroes.
Yeah.
But of course, every superhero team needs a budget. And that's step 5, right?
You got it. Developing a budget for your learning initiatives is so crucial. And it's more than just adding up the costs of courses and materials. You need to factor in development time, that technology infrastructure, the facilitator fees, even the cost of lost productivity while employees are actually engaging in those learning activities.
Yeah, that is a lot to consider. But I'm imagining this is where our business case comes in handy. We can actually use all that data we gathered about organizational goals and learning needs to justify these costs, right? And show that potential return on investment.
Exactly. You're not just asking for money. You are presenting a strategic investment plan. You're demonstrating how those dollars will actually translate into tangible business outcomes, like increased productivity, improved customer satisfaction, or maybe even reduced error rates.
It's such a powerful way to shift the perception of L&D from being a cost center to a value driver. But even with the best budget, the most amazing learning programs, I can still imagine things going off track. What are some other kind of pitfalls we should be watching out for?
Well, one I see pretty frequently is a misalignment between learning programs and the actual needs of the business.
Yeah.
This happens when L&D teams kind of get caught up in the latest trends or the shiny new objects of the learning world without really considering if those trends are actually relevant to their organization's goals.
So we might end up with this cutting edge VR training program that's super cool, but it doesn't actually address the core skills gaps that are actually, hindering our company's performance.
Exactly. That's the risk.
Yeah.
And to avoid it, you got to make sure that you're constantly checking in with stakeholders, gathering feedback, and really evaluating the effectiveness of your programs against those key business metrics.
So it's about staying agile, being willing to adjust course and ensuring that everything we're doing in L&D is actually tied back to those overarching organizational goals.
You got it. You really captured the essence of it. Building a business plan for learning isn't just about creating a document. It's about creating a mindset of strategic thinking, continuous improvement, and a relentless focus on delivering value to the organization.
Wow, that's a powerful way to frame it. I feel like we've almost gone beyond those tactical aspects of planning and into like the realm of organizational transformation.
And that's the exciting part. When you approach learning strategically, you're not just training employees, you're shaping the future of the organization.
It feels like we've covered a lot of ground here, from the essential components of a business plan to Vance's 7-step process. I'm definitely feeling a lot more strategic about how I approach L&D, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little intimidated.
Oh, I totally get it.
Yeah.
It's understandable to feel that way. Building a comprehensive plan can seem pretty daunting, but just remember, it's a journey. It's not a sprint, and you don't have to do it alone.
Oh, that is reassuring. So collaboration is key, right? And I keep thinking back to what Vance said, about getting buy-in from leadership, which is something I've personally struggled with. Do you have any advice on how to effectively, champion L&D initiatives to those who maybe don't see the value?
It's a common challenge. I've seen it play out in so many organizations. Sometimes it's just a matter of speaking their language. Instead of focusing on the learning itself, really highlight how those initiatives will impact the metrics they care about.
So instead of saying, we need to improve our employees' digital marketing skills, I might say, investing in digital marketing training can help us increase lead generation by 15% and boost our online sales conversion rate.
Now you're talking. When you frame L&D as a driver of those key performance indicators, it becomes a lot more compelling to leadership. And, data is your best friend here. Back up your proposals with research, case studies, real-world examples, that demonstrate that ROI of learning.
That makes a lot of sense. And, another situation I've run into a bunch is when leadership is on board, but resources are tight. Do you have any tips for navigating that?
Oh, yeah. Resource constraints are a reality for so many L&D departments. In those cases, it's about prioritizing ruthlessly. Focus on the initiatives that will have the biggest impact, on those top-level organizational goals we talked about earlier.
So if a company's main objective is, let's say, to improve customer retention, we might prioritize, training for our customer service teams, or maybe even developing a leadership program that's focused on building a customer-centric culture.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get creative with your solutions. Explore those cost-effective options, like online learning platforms, peer-to-peer mentoring programs, or even just leveraging those internal subject matter experts to deliver some training.
It's about being resourceful, right? And finding ways to maximize the impact of every dollar spent on L&D. Okay, but even with, clear objectives and a solid plan, I imagine things can still, go off the rails. What are some other common pitfalls to watch out for?
Well, one I see a lot is when there's a misalignment between those learning programs and the actual needs of the business. This often happens when, L&D teams kind of get caught up in the latest trends, or those shiny new objects of the learning world, without really considering if those trends are actually relevant to the organization's goals.
Oh, yeah. So we could end up with, like I said, a cutting-edge virtual reality training program. That's super cool, but doesn't actually address the core skills gaps that are hurting our performance.
That's the risk. And to avoid it, you got to make sure you're constantly checking in with stakeholders, gathering feedback and evaluating the effectiveness of your programs, against those key business metrics.
So it's about staying agile, being willing to adjust course and ensuring that everything we're doing in L&D is tied back to those overarching organizational goals.
You've got it. You really captured the essence of it. Building a business plan for learning isn't just about creating that document. It's about creating a mindset of strategic thinking, continuous improvement, and that relentless focus on delivering value to the organization.
That is such a powerful way to frame it. I feel like we've gone beyond just the tactical aspects of planning and into the realm of organizational transformation.
And that's the exciting part, right? When you approach learning strategically, you're not just training employees, you're shaping the future of the organization.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. I really feel like I have a whole new toolkit now, a whole new toolkit for approaching L&D. But I know our listeners are, probably eager to hear those key takeaways, those actionable insights that they can start using today. So what are some of the most important things to remember as we start on this journey of building a business plan for learning?
Well, first and foremost, remember that learning is a strategic lever, not just a cost center. When you approach L&D with a business mindset, you can unlock its true potential to drive results.
So it's about shifting our thinking from how much is this training going to cost
Mm,
to what kind of impact will this learning have on our success?
exactly. And remember that well-crafted business plan. It's your roadmap to success. It helps you articulate the value of learning, secure that buy-in from leadership, and really prioritize your efforts for maximum impact.
And it's not a one-time thing, right? We need to be constantly evaluating, adjusting, and improving our approach based on data, feedback, and those ever-changing needs.
You got it. Building a learning culture is an ongoing process, and this plan is your guide.
I'm feeling energized, ready to take action. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a little bit of a challenge.
I love it. What do you have in mind?
Now that you understand the power of, taking a strategic approach to learning, think about one initiative you could champion in your own organization. What is one skill gap, one knowledge area, or maybe one development opportunity that, if you addressed it, could have a really significant impact on your company's success?
That's a fantastic challenge. Write it down,
Yeah.
sketch out a plan, start building your case.
And remember, you don't have to have all the answers right away. Start with that one powerful idea and use the framework that we've discussed today to guide you on that journey.
Keep learning, keep innovating, keep pushing those boundaries of what's possible in the world of L&D.
That's a perfect note to end on. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those learning fires burning. We've covered so much in this deep dive, from those essential components of a business plan for learning, all the way to Vance's 7-step process for creating one. I feel like I have this whole new toolkit for how I approach L&D now. But to be honest, I'm a little intimidated.
Oh, yeah. I totally understand that feeling. Building a really comprehensive plan can feel pretty daunting. But the most important thing to remember is that it's a journey, right? Not a sprint. And you don't have to go it alone.
That's really reassuring. So collaboration is key here. I'm thinking back to what Vance said
All right.
about getting buy-in from leadership, and that's always been kind of a sticking point for me. So do you have any advice for how to really effectively champion these initiatives to those who might not see the value?
It's a super common challenge. I've seen it in so many organizations. And sometimes it's really just about speaking their language. Instead of focusing on the learning itself, try highlighting how those initiatives will actually impact the metrics they care about.
So instead of saying something like, we need to improve our employees' digital marketing skills, I might say something like, investing in digital marketing training can help us increase lead generation by 15% and boost our online sales conversion rate.
There you go. Now you're speaking their language.
Mm.
When you frame L&D as a driver of those key performance indicators, it just becomes so much more compelling. And, data is your best friend in these situations. Back up your proposals with research, case studies, real-world examples, things like that. Stuff that really demonstrates the ROI of learning.
That makes a lot of sense. I've also run into situations where leadership is on board, but resources are tight. What are your thoughts on navigating that?
Yeah, resource constraints are they're reality for so many L&D departments. I get it. In those cases, it really comes down to prioritizing.
Yeah.
Like ruthlessly prioritizing. Focus your energy on the initiatives that will have the biggest impact on those top-level organizational goals that we've been discussing.
So if a company's main objective is to, let's say, improve customer retention, then we might prioritize training for customer service teams, right?
Mhm.
Or maybe developing a leadership program that's focused on building a customer-centric culture.
You got it. And don't be afraid to get creative with those solutions, too.
Yeah.
Explore those cost-effective options like online learning platforms, peer-to-peer mentoring programs, or even leveraging internal subject matter experts to deliver training.
Right. So it's about being resourceful and finding ways to maximize the impact of every dollar we're spending on L&D. Okay, so even with, those clear objectives, a solid plan, I can still imagine things, going off track. What are some other common pitfalls to watch out for?
One that I see pretty often is misalignment between the learning programs and what the business actually needs. This often happens when L&D teams get caught up in the latest trends, those shiny objects of the learning world, without really pausing to think about whether those trends are relevant to their organization's goals.
Yeah, like we were talking about before, we could end up with a a really cutting-edge virtual reality training program that's, super cool and flashy and fun, but doesn't actually address those core skill gaps that are hindering performance.
Exactly. That's exactly the risk. And to avoid it, you have to constantly be checking in. Checking in with stakeholders, getting their feedback, evaluating the effectiveness of your programs, always measuring against those key business metrics.
All right, so it's about staying agile, being willing to adjust course and ensuring everything we do in L&D is connected back to those overall organizational goals.
You got it. You really captured the essence of it, I think. Building a business plan for learning. It's not just about, creating that document. It's about creating a mindset of strategic thinking, continuous improvement, and this relentless focus on delivering value to the organization.
That is such a powerful way to frame it. It really feels like we've gone beyond those tactical aspects of planning and we're really talking about, organizational transformation now.
And that's what makes this so exciting. When you approach learning this way, strategically, you're not just training employees, you're shaping the entire future of the organization.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for how I think about L&D, and I hope our listeners are feeling that way too, and that they're walking away with actionable insights that they can start using right now.
So as we wrap up, I wanna leave our listeners with a little challenge. Okay?
Oh yeah, I love it. What do you think? I want you to think about, now that you understand, this power of taking a strategic approach to learning. Think about one initiative that you could champion in your own organization. Is there a skill gap, a knowledge area, a development opportunity that if you were to address it could have a significant impact on your company's success?
That's a fantastic challenge. I love that. Write it down,
Right.
Sketch out a plan, start building your case.
And remember, you don't have to have all of the answers right now. Start with that one powerful idea and use the framework that we've discussed today to guide you on that journey.
Keep learning, keep innovating, and keep pushing those boundaries
Yeah,
of what's possible in L&D.
that's a perfect note to end on. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those learning fires burning.